Anamorphic lenses are becoming more and more popular as they become more and more affordable. These lenses used to be mechanical beasts that cost as much as a luxury car, but now you can buy autofocus anamorphics for your mirrorless camera. But what is an anamorphic lens? And when using them, what aspect ratio and resolution should you be shooting at? Anamorphic lenses optically distort the light entering the lens, squeezing it horizontally. You're essentially capturing a wider image on the horizontal axis, squeezed into the narrower frame. Then in post-production, you stretch it back out. This gives you a wider frame than you get natively from your sensor, providing a more cinematic aspect ratio. The many side effects of this optical design all contribute to the anamorphic look, which includes lens flares, oval instead of round bokeh, and often notable focus falloff and chromatic aberration around the edges of the frame. Anamorphics come in a variety of squeeze factors. This lens right here is a 1.33x squeeze. I'm actually shooting this on a 1.6x squeeze, and they come up to a 2x squeeze. So those are the three numbers that we'll be comparing today. But there are others in between, like 1.5x and 1.8x anamorphics. One of the choices to make when shooting anamorphic lenses is your shooting aspect ratio and resolution. Are you shooting full frame open gate in a 3:2 ratio? How about standard 16:9? What about a 4:3 ratio, likely found in a Micro Four Thirds or a Super 35 sensor? This is a choice you'd make with any lens, but with anamorphics, you need to consider the squeeze. As we go through this chart, keep in mind that while open gate gives you the most pixels, if you're recording internally, it likely gives you the least quality, and recording OpenGate externally may require shooting in RAW, as I am here. I've made a little Lumix lesson video about shooting RAW on Lumix that I'll link to up here and down below if you're curious about that. So let's run some numbers. Full frame, full sensor, called OpenGate, is a 3:2 or 1.5:1 aspect ratio. Ultra HD is a 16:9 or 1.78:1 ratio. Then Super 35 is usually, and Micro Four Thirds is always, a 4:3 or 1.33:1 ratio. So those are our three starting points: 1.5:1, 1.78:1, and 1.33:1. A 1.33x anamorphic desqueeze will stretch a full frame 3:2 aspect ratio image to 2:1, which is already wider than 16:9, but not quite as wide as CinemaScope. That native 16:9 image, though, once stretched 1.33x, becomes a 2.4:1 aspect ratio. That's CinemaScope. So if you're shooting with a 1.33x squeeze lens, choosing a 16:9 recording format will give you CinemaScope straight out of camera. If you shoot in 4:3, that 1.33x squeeze will stretch out to 16:9, which gives you a high resolution, slightly anamorphic looking image in a standard 16:9 ratio. It's a cool option if you're shooting Micro Four Thirds. Of course, keep in mind that you can always crop to any ratio you like. We're just talking about the native image here. Now moving to the 1.6x squeeze lens, that full frame 3:2 ratio, again what we're shooting here, becomes 2.4:1. So now that is a full sensor ratioed out to full CinemaScope. Put the 1.6x squeeze on a 16:9 crop though, and you'll get 2.84:1, which is super wide. If you've seen the Hateful Eight film, you may remember that it's incredibly wide, presented at 2.76:1. So 2.84:1 is too wide. You have to crop it. From a 4:3 ratio sensor, you'd stretch to 2.13:1, so still not a ratio that makes a whole lot of sense. But you'll see in a moment why this 4:3 sensor ratio is still very relevant. Finally, with a 2x anamorphic lens, OpenGate becomes 3:1 and 16:9 becomes 3.5:1, both of which are obscenely wide. It's unlikely you'd ever publish something that wide, but it does give you a lot of room to crop off the sides. However, that Super 35 4:3 ratio at a 2x desqueeze becomes 2.67:1. Sound familiar? That's the Hateful Eight aspect ratio.
Got room for one more?
Even if you have a full frame camera, many high-end anamorphic lenses, especially at 2x squeeze, are usually designed for Super 35 sensors. That's why the full-frame Lumix cameras can shoot that way, cropped into the full-frame sensor down to the Super 35 size past the vignetting that you would otherwise get from these lenses. When it comes to shooting anamorphic, there's no right or wrong, just a lot of options that are important to understand before you set off shooting. I've made several videos about various anamorphic lenses over the years, so check out some of those in this playlist here. Also, if you really want to nerd out about anamorphic lenses, be sure to check out my friend Chito Ferradan's channel, the Anamorphic Cookbook.